apologise in advance for any issues of sound quality in the episode you're about to listen to. This chapter of the Pogley Wood Murders was recorded in self-isolation, with each of our actors playing their parts in their own house.
On a frosty April night in 1937, the bells of St. Mary's Church chime midnight over Morlington Hill. The church is dark and empty now, but every Sunday it's full to the brim as the villagers gather in the vain hope that their souls will be spared from eternal damnation. Little do they realise that simply by living in the cursed parish of Morlington and Pogley, they are already damned to an existence that any sane person would describe as hellish, if not a living hell itself.
We wish you a Merry Christmas.
Across the village green, one of Morlington's oldest residents is sounding far from holy.
What?
I'm a carol singer. Give me your bunty.
Mother, what time do you call this? It's gone midnight. You're 84.
Oh, shut thee trap, Betty Nusser, and help me get this inside.
What on earth is that?
What do you think it is, our Betty?
Well, it looks like a wheelchair.
Well, happen as like it is a wheelchair. You know me, our Betty. Never one us to call a spade now, but a spade. Not like your grandfather, God rot his soul. He'd sooner call one a fork if it suited him. And me and my mother would have to agree with him and make do.
But Mother, where did you get it from?
Found it on t' village green.
What were you doing on the village green at midnight on a Thursday?
Happen as like, I've been to a party.
Party? Where?
Into park.
What park?
Never thee mind, our Betty. Here, you'll never guess who I just saw into churchyard.
The Pogley Wood Murders, Chapter 7, Cold as Ice, by Nigel Fairs.
Truro Police Station, Constable Knibblett speaking. Can I help you?
Well, Betty,
Well, what?
Who?
are you going?
Going where?
Say again, please.
To that concert down St Mary's in Morlington next Tuesday.
Why would I want to go to that?
You're very quiet.
Because old Nibbers has just spent the last 10 minutes trying to ask you, that's why.
What?
I said you're very quiet.
Weren't you listening?
I think you must be holding it up the wrong way.
Listening to what?
To Nibbers.
You're holding it upside down.
All that guffins about Mozart and Artie Shaw.
The telephone.
That was him inviting you out.
Oh, I give up.
No, it weren't.
At your 3 and 6 it was.
What was what?
Never you mind.
So you two going to that concert then?
Well, yes, if,
If what?
Sgt Dingle.
Ah, Miss Swallocks, just the person I was looking for. I've 2 tickets to the memorial concert next Tuesday. I wondered if you'd like to be my +1.
Me?
What memorial concert's that then, sir?
There's a little do at St Mary's in Morlington Hill, April the 18th.
Next Tuesday?
Yes, Sergeant. It'll be 20 years to the day since the great fire of Morlington swept through the village, killing 40 people and 5 goats, injuring a fair few more and destroying goodness knows how many houses into the bargain. Would have taken out the whole of Morlington if there hadn't been a corker of a thunderstorm that put the fires out.
Oh, really?
Reverend Olting has put together a little local choir, and I feel obliged to go along and listen to them slaughter a smidgen of Shostakovich or whatever. Show 'em a face, don't you know? And frankly, I'd be grateful for the support.
Of course, sir. I'd be delighted.
Good. As you were.
Oh dear Nibbers. Looks like you were pipped to the post.
I've no idea what you're talking about. Truro Police Station, Constable Knibblett speaking. Can I help you?
if you could just, would everyone mind... Oh dear.
Everyone!
Thank you, Miss Spewtum.
My pleasure, Reverend. Very much so. If I'd had to listen to that cacophony for much longer, I think I might have...
What's that you saying?
Cacophony, I said. I've never heard such a terrible noise.
It wasn't that bad, Miss Spewtum.
Yes, it were.
Mother.
She weren't even singing the right song.
Do switch your hearing aid on, Baroness Pippin.
I said you were singing the wrong song.
Were you? Well, that's hardly my fault, is it?
Not me, you.
You should concentrate. Reverend, do I really have to sit with the hyper lawyer? Haven't my family got a private pew?
Why don't you try singing from another church?
What's that?
Ladies, please, if I might have everyone's attention. Thank you. Now then,
Oh, get on with it, you stupid man.
Mother.
yes, now we're, warmed up.
Warmed up? Oh, who's he kidding? I'm as cold as a nun's tit.
Oh, Mother, please.
Don't you mother please me, Betty Nosser. You might think you're the cat's meow now, living down south and working for la-da-da solicitors, but never you forget where your roots are, girl.
How could I, Mother?
Honestly, just because she's got a solo, she suddenly thinks she's Ella Fitzgerald, that one. But if you ask me, she sounds more like Tommy Trinder.
Mother.
45, never been kissed, and I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, who'd want to come face to face with that under tidy down, eh? No, she'll be a spinster till hell freezes over, that's for sure.
Is there something wrong, Mrs. Noser?
Not that you could sort out, apparently. Not unless you know a blind man who's desperate for a bit of house your father. Oh, and he'd have to be deaf too to put up with her so-called singing.
Mother, please stop being so unpleasant. It's also humiliating.
Yes, do.
Oh, you can shut up and all, you deaf cow.
What did she say?
Deaf cow! Oh, sitting there in all her finery like mutton dressed up as lamb. She thinks she's summer, but really she's now short of vulgar. Common as dog dirt. Oh, sorry, Reverend, but I speaks as I find.
What is that horrid little woman saying now?
Shall we be getting on with the rehearsal, Reverend? We're on tomorrow.
Yes, Miss Spewtum, you're quite right. The, voice of reason, as always. Well, I've been looking through our bits and pieces, and I think that perhaps we ought to begin with, Begin the Begin, if that's all right. I think it needs a little bit of work.
That's you, ain't it, our Betty?
Yes, Mother.
I've got an idea, Reverend. Get someone else to sing it.
Miss Noser, I wonder if you could come up the front and give us the key.
She wouldn't know Turkey if it stood up and slapped her into the face.
Right then, if we could have all the oohs over here, all the bee-bop-de-booby-doobies here, and the ahs here. We'll have a little go, shall we? Right then, off we go. Are you ready, Mrs. Spliggett?
Oh, yes, ready and waiting.
Good. And 1 and 2 and... oh, just a minute. Where's Mr. Craddock?
He's asleep at the back of the church.
How he slept through that bracket is quite beyond me.
Mr. Craddock, if you don't mind, we'll be needing you for the second verse. Mr. Craddock? Oh, dear. I wonder, could somebody give him a nudge?
I'll do it, Reverend.
Thank you, Miss Noser.
Where's she going now? Is the rehearsal over?
Are you all right, Miss Noser? Elizabeth?
He's as cold as ice.
What's that, dear?
Mr. Craddock! He's dead!
Dead?
As a doorknob.
Craddock. Isn't that the chap with the,
Scars on his face, that's right. There are those down the village what calls him the Phantom of the Opera. But I won't be having none of that. Anyhows, he was just sitting there. I thought he were asleep when I comes in. But that's not all. Titty Twiglet down the placket told me that Betty Swallocks told her that he'd been dead for a week.
A week?
That's right. Of course, that Doreen Noser pipes up saying she knew he were dead as soon as she saw him. Ooh, she's awful, she is. Simply awful. You know, every single time I pop into Truro to have my Marcel wave titivated, sure as can be she'll be sitting in the next chair, mouth like a navvy. And she can't sing a note neither. No wonder the Reverends put her at the back next to the Baroness. Another crumpet, Joseph?
No thank you, Mrs. S. I've had ample sufficiency.
Listen to you. Ample sufficiency. I honestly think you must be the most polite gentleman I've ever had lodging here, Joseph, and I don't mind telling you.
Joe, please, Mrs. S.
Joe. And if you were of the inclination, I would be perfectly happy for you to call me Sybil.
Well, I should be honoured to do so.
Ooh. You are a card. Go on. Have another crumpet.
Oh, all right, if you insist. Did you say that there's a Baroness singing in the concert?
That's right. Baroness Pippin, deaf as a post.
Goodness me. A real-life Baroness living in the village.
Well, strictly speaking, she don't. She lives across on Pippin Island. But yes, we have all sorts here. I think you're going to love it.
I think I might, Mrs. Sybil.
How's you getting on down at Thrippet and Longbodies?
Oh, they're a nice crowd, really. Mind you, most chemists are.
I've always thought so. Civilised people. What you might call a caring profession.
Ah, precisely. Care for a top-up, Sybil?
Don't mind if I do.
No. You should let me know. Next time you're planning to have your Marcel wave titivated, there's no need for you to catch the bus. I could take you in the old tin can.
Mr. King, you are such a gentleman. I was saying only last week to Mr. King, that's the gentleman what dropped me off in his motor earlier.
Bellissimo is a fine-looking gentleman.
Is he really? I can't say as how I've noticed.
I think you have, my dear.
Madam Lala, you are a card. As I was saying... Well, as I live and breathe, it's happened again.
Welcome. Come in. Sit you down, please.
Oh, still the foreign, is it?
Mother.
It is just the normal juge, is it, Senora?
Oh, don't ask me. It's my daughter what insists to get me hair done. Happen as like, I'd be happy with it like it is. But no, she goes on and on, grinds me down with it, and before we know what's what, we're up to Buster Truro.
Yes, please. Just the usual, Madam Lala. You'll like it when it's done, Mother. You know you will.
You will be wanting it to look beautiful for the concert this evening, Senora, yes?
That's right, she will.
Senorita Spewtum, here tell me your pequeña Betty is singing the solo.
Oh, hello, Miss Spewtum. I didn't see you there.
Don't mind me.
We are wanting to look our best for our Betty's show business debut, see?
Oh, don't. It's only a couple of lines, and in any case...
I saw him, you know.
What is that, Senora?
I saw him, bold as brass, dancing round graveyard in Midlet at night.
Saw who, my dear?
Ernest Craddock.
Oh, Mother, for heaven's sake.
Doing the two-step they were, as sure as I'm sitting here.
Ernesto Craddock. Is not that the pobre man they found last night in the Santa Marias?
Yes, it is.
Betty were the one that nudged him, weren't you, dear?
Yes, I was.
Such a life of tragedy. His face, his leg, is not so good.
Stone cold dead in the back of the church. Been dead for over a week, they say.
Precisely. I don't know what my mother were drinking last Thursday, but whatever it was, she came home as tight as a tick and with a wheelchair to boot.
It were Ernest Craddock, I tell you, as I live and breathe. What's she laughing at? Her?
Are you all right, Miss Betty?
Am I all right? Oh, I'm all right, I am. I'm as right as rain.
She's soft in the head, that one.
It's just Ernie Craddock dancing.
Oh dear, I think I might have put a little too much dry shampoo on the Senorita Spewtum.
It were Ernest Craddock I spoke to him.
No, you didn't, Mother. We had that out the next morning over breakfast, don't you remember?
Happen as like I do. Their eggs were cold.
We didn't have eggs. We had cornflakes. And it weren't Ernest Craddock you spoke to. It was some chappie that worked St. Chemist, remember?
Oh, really? Who's that then? You might know my Jojo. You might know my Jojo.
You're talking a lot of stuff and nonsense, our Betty. I didn't say no such thing. I said, how was Ernest Craddock works in t' chemist now? I saw him there and all, on Monday just past.
Mother.
Baroness Pippin is in the choir.
Apparently, sir, yes.
Oh, lords. I knew I should have brought my earplugs. What's the time now, Miss Swallocks? Might we grab a wee snifter in the placard before the concert?
Oh, yes, sir. I'm sure that would be perfectly lovely.
Perfectly lovely, eh? Dear Miss Swallocks, you are a funny little thing, aren't you?
Am I?
Dolled up to the nines in your Sunday best like that. Anyone would think we were on our way to the palace. And what a sweet little muff.
Thank you, sir. And if you don't mind me
Right,
saying...
spit spot. No time to waste.
Ladies, please, can we have a little decorum? Oh dear.
Anyone seen my mother? She seems to have vanished into thin air.
Ooh, that'll improve the tenor section no end.
Yes, all right, Miss Spewtum. There's no need to be rude.
Oh, dear.
Ladies, please. That's better. Now then, we've only got a few minutes before we let people in, so... Good heavens, what was that unearthly heart-rending scream?
It sounded like Elizabeth knows her.
Oh my word. Elizabeth, what's happened?
It's my mother. She's been horribly poisoned. Every orifice oozing bodily fluids and her face contorted into an almost inhuman expression of agony and horror.
What's happening?
Doreen knows is dead, Baroness Pippin.
Who?
Her, there in the wheelchair.
Oh, mother. What shall we do?
Should we call for the police, do you think?
Oh no, they'd only cancel the concert and we can't have that. Well, perhaps we should wheel her into the vestry.
But she'll start to go.
Oh, yes. Oh no, she won't. I've got an idea. We can pop her into the ice house whilst we're doing the concert and then call the police when we're finished.
Tip-top.
It isn't tip-top at all. I can't stand here singing Begin the Begin, knowing that my mother's next door in the ice house, there doesn't...
You don't have to. I can sing it. I knows the words and the tune and all.
Do you, Miss Spewtum? Well, that would be quite wonderful. Come along then, everyone. Let's shake a leg.
What's this all about then, Dingle?
It's called We Will Remember Them All, sir. Mrs. Spliggett from the girls' school composed it in honour of them who died in the Great Fire.
Lucky buggers. They don't have to sit here listening to the wretched thing.
What have you done with Betty, sir? I thought she was your date.
My date? Oh, don't be absurd, Sergeant. She said she was feeling a little flushed before the concert, so I told her to go and stand in the ice house for a bit and cool down.
Flushed, eh?
You're looking very neat, Sergeant.
Really? Oh, thank you, sir.
Is that a new jacket?
No,
I had no idea you were coming as well.
Yes, well, it's a shame Constable Knibblett didn't come and all. Then it'd have been like a work outing, wouldn't it?
Excuse me.
Some outing.
Sorry.
Ah, here she is.
Beg pardon. Excuse me.
Feeling better, Miss Swallocks?
As a matter of fact, no, sir. I'm most definitely not.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here at the heart of our little parish to remember those who died on that tragic day 20 years ago, April the 18th, 1917.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Reverend. Ladies and gentlemen, the name's Sixpence. Detective Inspector Arthur Sixpence, Truro Police. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to call a halt to the concert.
Why on earth?
I'm rather afraid that there's been an horrific murder in mysterious circumstances. A few moments ago, my pathological assistant, Miss Swallocks, happened to cross a stiff in the ice house next to the church.
Oh my word, I've no idea.
Oh, cheese it, Reverend. You know exactly what's going on. Everyone in the choir does, Inspector.
What's that?
Everyone who hasn't forgotten to put their hearing aid in, that is.
The corpse is my mother, Inspector. Doreen knows her.
Does she really? And where is this Doreen?
She's dead.
Oh, really? Well, then that's not going to be much use to me, is it? I wonder if we might have a little conversation in private somewhere. Reverend Olting, is there somewhere...
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Sergeant.
Sir?
Be a good man and take down everyone's particulars.
Sir.
Miss Swallocks, have another gander at the stiff, will you?
Yes, sir.
Sir, don't you think... I mean...
Spit it out, Dongle.
It's Dingle.
Of course it is. Good man.
Well, isn't it a bit of a coincidence?
Isn't what a bit of a coincidence?
Mrs. Noser dying here, so soon after Mr. Craddock.
Who?
Ernest Craddock. Found last week here at St. Mary's. Sat alone in a pew at the back of the church, stone cold dead. Eyes staring, 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 as if he were gazing into the very depths of hell.
Oh, was that who it was? The chap with the face? Or rather, not much of a face.
Yes, sir, that's the one.
I thought he died of natural causes.
So it seemed.
What do you mean, Sergeant, so it seemed?
Well, it turns out he'd been dead for a week.
Really? What on earth has that got to do with the stiff in the ice house?
Madame Lala said...
Madame
this.
who?
The hairdresser on Truro High Street. She told my old ma this afternoon.
Your old ma?
That's right, sir.
I thought you said that your mother was bedridden in Durdle Door in Dorset.
Yes, well, she popped over for the afternoon to get her hair zhuzhed.
To get it what?
Zhuzhed. Anyway, Madame Lala said that Mrs. Noser had said that she'd seen Mr. Craddock dancing the two-step through the churchyard at St. Mary's late on Thursday night.
Having died 2 days earlier?
Yes, sir. And now they're both dead. Bit strange, don't you think?
Not especially, no, Sergeant. These local yokels, they're always claiming to have seen ghosts and ghoulies dancing around the village.
Oh.
But I like your haircut.
Thank you, sir.
Just a minute. Craddock. Isn't that the chap who found that painting in his attic?
Eh?
Riding the waterfall. The Turner.
The what?
He's an artist. A terribly well-known artist. And the painting was terribly rare, worth an absolute fortune. It was on the front page of the Morlington Herald a couple of weeks back.
Was it?
Oh, really, Dongle, you ought to keep your eye on local news, you know.
It's...
Another thing. When you're taking down everyone's particulars, I'd like you to keep an eye on our friend the Reverend.
Why's that, sir?
There's something about him. Something I can't quite put my finger on.
I know what you mean. Mind you, they're all a bit odd, aren't they?
Who are?
That lot. The clergy.
Talk of the devil.
If you'd like to come with me, Inspector, I think I've found you a corner.
Thank you, Reverend. Why don't you take a seat, madam?
Thank you.
Are you all right?
Perfectly.
Are you sure this will do, Inspector?
Perfectly all right, thank you, Reverend.
You'll have to excuse the mess. I'm afraid my choir boys are a little careless with their cassocks.
Boys will be boys, I suppose.
Oh, yes.
Well, if you don't mind.
Oh, yes, of course. Toodle pip.
Now then, madam, your name.
Noser. Betty Noser.
Bet who knows who?
Sorry.
Who's the he and who's the she that he knows?
No, it's Betty. Betty Noser.
Who does Betty know?
No, Betty's me.
Betty knows you.
No, I'm Betty. Betty Noser.
I'm sorry?
Don't apologise. I'm Noser. Elizabeth Noser. But most people call me Betty.
Oh, I see. Are you all right?
Perfectly.
So, Miss Noser, you say that the stiff was your mother?
Yes. We put her in there. In the ice house.
Who did?
The Reverend and I did, Inspector. Oh, and Miss Spewtum.
Miss Spewtum?
She's in the choir. We thought we'd better keep her fresh until after the concert. My mother, that is, not Miss Spewtum.
I see. So the wheelchair in which she was sitting was hers?
Yes. Well, no. Well, yes and no.
Yes, well, no, well, yes and no.
We found it on Thursday evening on the village green. Or rather, Mother did. At midnight.
Midnight?
She said she'd been to a party in Dead Man's Field.
And what sort of party might this be?
A non-existent one. She were prone to the most bizarre imaginings, Inspector.
I see.
She's never been quite the same since Daddy died.
And when was that?
Nearly 10 years ago now. He drove his motor car into a goat down near Penryn. The goat survived, but Daddy didn't.
I'm sorry to hear that, madam. You all right?
Perfectly.
Now then, Betty, my Betty, that is, Miss Swallocks, her initial inspection of the stiff, your mother, revealed that she died from a large dose of something very like digitoxin, administered to her by a needle in the... You sure you're all right, Miss Noser?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's just that I'm belenophobic. I only have to see a needle and I feel positively queer. Did you say my mother was killed by digitoxin?
That's right.
Well, then she wasn't murdered after all. What a relief.
And how can you be certain of that, madam?
She was taking digitoxin for her heart condition. She must have taken too much, that's all. I know I should have made it my responsibility to ensure she has the right dosage, but my belenophobia made that quite impossible. We'd usually get Miss Rickett next door to give her the injections, seeing as she's a district nurse. But she's off hiking in the Andes, so Mother's been asking any Tom, Dick or Harry to give her a little prick, as she put it.
These men, they'd be available for questioning, would they?
Which men?
Thomas, Richard and Harold.
Very droll, Inspector.
Are they? Are you...
Perfectly all right, yes, thank you. You know, I feel dreadful for saying this, but I can't help thinking it's a bit of a mercy, Mother going like that. She becomes so absent-minded and such a gloomy gusset. She used to be bright as ninepence, you know. A prison governess, no less. Top of her class. But recently, she seemed to be getting worse. She wouldn't stop rabbiting on and on about poor old Ernest Craddock.
The corpse, sitting alone in a pew at the back of the church, stone-cold dead, eyes staring, 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 as if he were gazing into the very depths of hell.
Yes, Mother were convinced she'd seen him wandering round village in the middle of night.
Dancing?
According to Madame Lala.
Who?
Hairdresser on Truro High Street. She said that Mrs. Noser, the deceased Mrs. Noser, told her this morning that she saw the other deceased, Mr. Craddock, dancing the two-step through St. Mary's churchyard late last Thursday.
Well, that's quite impossible. He only had one leg. He lost it in 1917.
Oh. In the trenches?
No.
A Zeppelin?
No, the Swift-Craddock-Haddock War.
The what?
Two families, the Swifts and the Craddocks, both set up fishmongers on Truro High Street. Fish was apparently very much in demand because of the meat rationing. But when the fish started to run out as well, the Swifts and the Craddocks fought a bloody and terrible war that culminated in a fire at Craddock's haddocks that spread through the whole of Morlington Hill, burned poor Mr. Craddock's face half off, and lost him a leg. His wife and 10-year-old child too, apparently.
They died?
More or less.
What do you mean?
They moved to Blackpool.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, I told her, Mother, you're letting your imagination run away with you. But no, she weren't having any of it. She were convinced it were him. She even said she'd talk to him. At first, at any rate.
At first?
Yes, it all got a bit confusing. It does with Mother. She changed her mind halfway through her cornflakes. She seemed to be saying that it hadn't been Ernest Craddock at all, but some chappie that works in chemists in the village, I think.
Oh, really? Which chappie was that, then?
I've no idea.
Are you...
Yes, perfectly. It's just a little tickle.
Miss Noser, if you don't mind, I fail to see how an old man dying of natural causes in a church pew could possibly be relevant to your mother's far-from-natural death this evening. Would you mind if we return to the matter in hand?
Yes, I'm sorry, Inspector.
Did your mother have any enemies that you know of? Miss Noser, would you mind answering the question?
Well, yes, she did. Once a fortnight. But really, I don't see what that has to do with anything.
This is a murder investigation, madam. Of course it's relevant. Who?
Who what? Well, generally speaking, it was Dr. Whibley, though occasionally Miss Rickett would lend a helping hand, so to speak, if she came round to give her a little prick.
Lending a helping hand with what?
You know.
I don't know.
With a rubber glove and so on.
A rubber glove and so on? Miss Noser, what are you talking about?
My mother's enemies.
Enemies, I said. Did your mother have any enemies?
Oh, I'm terribly, terribly sorry. I misheard you. My Brodie. Golly, listen to me, gumming up the works with all my waffle. You must think I'm a real dumb Dora.
I thought you said your name was Elizabeth. I'm not even going to ask.
Mother weren't the easiest person to get along with, Inspector. And we have been living here for 20 years. So of course she's rubbed a few people up the wrong way.
Yes. According to Miss Swallocks, everyone called her Dastardly Doreen.
Oh, did they really? I'm terribly sorry, Inspector. I know I shouldn't laugh, but Dastardly Doreen. That's even better than the fish.
The fish?
Maiden name.
Miss Noser, please.
I'm terribly sorry. I think it must be the shock.
Now then, you and your mother have been living here for 20 years, you say?
Since Valentine's Day 1917. I were 5. Oh dear, what a day. And now I suppose I'll never find out I'll never find out how my father died.
You know how he died. He ran his motor into a goat.
Oh no, not that father. My real one.
Your real one?
Yes, he died about 6 months before I were born. Before Mother married Daddy.
Are you implying that when they married she was...
In the family way, yes. They thought I never knew, but I did know. And I didn't tell them. I thought it better that they didn't know that I knew, and as long as I knew that they didn't know that I knew, or after Daddy died, I knew that Mother didn't know that
Yes,
I knew.
I think I get the point, Miss Noser.
Yes, well, my real father died in the Lake District, apparently. But why?
I've no idea. I didn't know him.
No, but why? It's the teensiest little hamlet near Windermere. B''Twy. But why? It actually means between the ways. Presumably because it was sandwiched between a couple of highways.
Is it really, Miss Noser? How interesting.
Oh dear.
Miss Noser, is there something wrong? Oh dear, indeed. I don't think that can be right.
Are you alright, madam?
Rascal! You nearly
Sorry,
killed me.
I didn't see you.
Is that Constable Knibblett, isn't it?
It's Knibblett.
You're the perfect person to bump into. You must come down the post office at once. There's a situation.
Good heavens. What in the name of blazes were that?
Next time on the POGLEY WOOD Murders.
It might have escaped your attention, but a murder has taken place this evening.
Inspector Sixpence telephoned me to say that he suspects that Miss Noser may well be suffering from the effects of digitoxin poisoning.
There's been a murder.
Of course I didn't like her. She was a mean, vindictive old witch.
I don't think it's Mrs. Noser's murder that we should be concentrating on.
Oh, mind yourself!
You have been listening to the POGLEY WOOD Murders, Chapter 7, Cold as Ice by Nigel Fairs, with Abby Harris as Betty Noser and Patty O'Dore, Nigel Fairs as Detective Inspector Sixpence and Baroness Pippin, Radley Mason as Constable Knibblett, Max Day as Sgt Dingle and Madame Lala, Rebecca Crinion as Betty Swallocks, Dominic McChesney as Reverend Olting, Pip Henderson as Doreen Noser, Anthony Townsend as Joseph King, with special guest star Louise Jameson as Sybil Spewtum. Sound production on the POGLEY WOOD Murders was by Nigel Fairs, who also composed the music.
This is Cornwall calling.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Dominic McChesney, F&I Associates.
Miss Swallocks on the line.
I feel pretty, oh so pretty. I feel pretty and witty and bright. And I'm pretty. Okay, I'm there. Right, I'm there.
And here are the votes from the Morlington jury.
To get it what? Hello, baby.
Page 2.
It is just...
It
is just... It is just... Okay. Oh dear. I think I might have put a little too much dry shampoo on the Señorita Spewtum. Spewtum. Spewtum.